is a well-known Boston area psychiatrist and a personal life strategist with a spiritual focus. He uses the law of attraction as a touchstone to help people reveal their divine self-expression to live the life of their dreams. Now, throughout his own journaling, he's used journaling as a way of gaining clarity and insights, and at a deeper level, as a way of listening to his soul. And let us say, Michael, hi, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michael. It's my pleasure to join you.
Oh, and thank you so much for being here. You know, when we deal with the law of attraction, we've heard about it for, many years now. And if somebody does not believe in the law of attraction, if they want wealth, they want this, they want that, and they don't see it coming, and all of a sudden their life is miserable, well, guess who called it? So I really believe in the law of attraction, because if you can get it as bad as you can get it good.
Amen.
And don't we call for it ourselves?
James Allen said, we are what we think about. Our life experience, our character is all about what we hold in our head, our thoughts.
No, absolutely. And the thoughts are something that we learn. And I think there's where the real problem is, because I've realized over the years that if you can learn something, you can unlearn it and you can relearn. You just have to be open to it. But more importantly, it takes guys like yourself that have a roadmap to do so, to open somebody's eyes and allow them to see that it's possible to do the change.
Yes, Michael. The key thing is, are you willing to take a look at what you think about all day long? And not only take a look at it, but literally write down some thoughts about this thing or that thing, what you want, what you don't want. And then when it's on that journal page or paper, you can see what feels good, what doesn't. And then you can take responsibility for what the heck you think about.
Let's start out with a commonality of definition. The law of attraction. What is it and how does it work? And most importantly, what's that something that's missing that most people don't get the full value of?
What's missing is to pay attention to what you think about in a more grounded way, literally to write down what you think about and then parse it, deconstruct it as to what feels good and what doesn't. The law of attraction is simply packaging millennia philosophy. If you pay attention to what you love, enjoy, you connect with that. If you're paying attention to your human aches and pains and grievances, you'll get a lot of that.
Now, by the way...
And the challenge is...
Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Okay, by the way, I was going to say, we pay attention to the aches, the pains, the human stuff, but that's something that we've been taught to do. I'm going to go back to that. If the only way that I can get attention is to be sick, to be in pain, to be depressed, then that's my identity. So it has to be a whole transition there.
Well, yes, a transition, but the first step is, I guess, taking it from a point of view that we're not human beings having spiritual experiences. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. And that's a big get for people, and only by literally seeing what they think about, writing it down, literally writing it down, and saying this doesn't feel good, that feels bad, and start to separate them out. Our journal offers various fields so you can organize your thinking. So you really do pay attention to those thoughts that are connected to, call it spiritual essence, love, wisdom, whatever that feels good for you. And on the other hand, you pay attention to the human concerns, financial concerns, relationship concerns, and so forth. But to your point about people pick up so many things, yes, the identity is formed early on. If you have a tough life, you have a tough identity, or let's say a more problematic one. Some people have easier passage, most don't. But you are not that identity. And once people make that leap, by literally seeing, they can reframe their thinking and choose how they would like to think and feel and be. It's that imagination that starts taking over. And you find that you live more and more in that virtual imagery, and that starts to move the universe, let's say.
Okay, but the imagery is the absolute key to this, because if I'm miserable, I'm not happy, I'm depressed, I'm all of those things that we see, then if I don't have a corresponding image of what happiness is, what joy is, what love is, with the rest of the words, then
Yeah.
I'm never going to reach it. So if I'm journaling and all of a sudden I learn how to create that image, I've got something that I can tie myself to that's recognizable so I know when I'm happy.
You've got it. It's simply you create a context of, if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you want to be clear, pay attention to what you've enjoyed in your life. Many people, no matter how miserable, have had extraordinary experiences of love, of happiness, of joy, of blessings, albeit fleeting. But the challenge here is to literally write down the experience and see if you can wire that in more and more. And even if you're feeling miserable, you write that down, you get clear, this is it, the feeling, and then as you're clear of the suffering, the pain, what's not right, in that clarity, you have an entree to, in that clarity, what else would I like to have or be or do?
Yeah, and another dimension of that is thank the misery, because if the misery wasn't there, you would never have gotten on the path to wake up.
Well, that's the cry of any successful person in Alcoholics Anonymous or any other such
Sure.
program. The pain, the suffering is that touchstone to growth and realization and awakening.
It's the same thing in business. It's the same thing in a relationship. It's that something when you begin to recognize that you don't have to do it and the wisdom that comes out of it.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's really where the key is at. So everything in life, I really believe we're brought into this life to learn some kind of a lesson. And when it comes to you, when you learn the lesson, your big gift out of that is you get another lesson to learn, and it never stops.
Well, I would even add that not only or merely to learn a lesson, because you're going to get lessons, and if you can learn them, that's fabulous. If you don't, you're just going to be more miserable, and you know where that ends. However, for me, it's getting clear, why are you here? And that's something that someone, if they start looking at how they'd like things to be and to have and do, and start asking the question, what is my purpose? What's the thing I love doing? Where would my vocation or my avocation come together in a way that really resonates with me, that makes my heart delight and fill me with joy, even if I didn't get paid for it? What would be the most fun thing? You see, it's simply asking the questions. The answers will come if you'll allow yourself to step away from it.
And it's also defining the destination. If I don't know where I'm going, Michael, I'm never going to get there.
You're going to just stay where you are.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I really believe it. And I know what this is going to sound like, but this is so simple if somebody will just take a look. It's like going into the doctor's office and bringing your arm up like you're going to make a bicep the muscle. And you say to the doctor, it hurts when I do this. Well, the doctor says, well, don't do that.
Don't.
And it won't hurt.
It is. You're right. It's extraordinary to me how people can stay in their box or their identity. And yet, when I started to do this journal and work with people, I had trouble listening to some of the pain of the people I worked with years ago. And finally, I got so frustrated. I said, "Let me see if I can write down what you're saying. Is this what you said? Is this what you said? Yes, 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 yes." And in that moment, they got heard. They saw what the heck they were feeling and thinking, and in that moment, there was an opening.
Yeah.
No. And in that clarity, we opened up Pandora's box. In other words, the sky was the limit. Well, how would you like to be?
Well,
I like to be heard.
Wait, good point. Let me interrupt just for a second. You can say to somebody, "What do you want?" But there's a question that goes along with it, and that question is, when you get it, what does it look like? And I think that it's so important, because then you know you're on track. If you and I have a goal, if we have a common goal, and if it looks different to you than it does to me, we're never going to get there together.
Absolutely. So there has to be an internal, commitment to a shared goal. However, for an individual, it's simply, for us, it's effectively separating the heart's desires from the ego's desires. Now, as a human being, every human being has its own needs and wants and priorities. However, it needs to be in balance to what you love, what the heart desires. And if you can walk and chew gum, if you can hold that structural tension, you get clearer and clearer. You get a way to handle that human beingness, that sense of what's not quite right, or the signals that from your sensory body, let's say, the sensory organ. And then you start to soar more and more and speak more and more from the disposition of what your heart's desires, what you're here for, and the language pours out. And it's not language of the intellect or thinking, it's the language of simply knowing.
Yeah. But the mind also has its own language. The unconscious mind deals in a language of pictures and symbols. It doesn't speak English, Russian, Chinese. It doesn't speak that way.
Sure.
But see, you know that. I know that. How many people don't know that? That's the key. If I want to change myself, I have to learn the language of the unconscious, which is simple. It's just pictures and symbols, etc. But if you don't know it, you can't use it.
You know, you've touched on a very important teaching point. We use a fragment of a poem from Rumi, and it goes like this: "The scent of a rose garden reached you. The scent of a rose garden reached you. Otherwise, you would have no knowledge of these words." So you're walking and chewing gum. The scent of a rose garden is a delicious image that anyone can get, and yet you couldn't get it unless you had knowledge of those words: a scent, rose garden, reaching you, and so forth.
Sure.
So both are operative. In other words, the human being desires and words and language, and then the imagery, the scent of the rose garden, is let's say, a template of making your life a rose garden where the scent is all over and blooming.
Sure. You know, I use an example a lot. And if I say to somebody, if I say chamber around, R-O-U-N-D, chamber around, what does that mean? Well, 9 out of 10 people say, I don't know what that means. But if I say put a bullet in a gun, they say, oh, yeah, I see that. I've got an image. Well, the round is a bullet and the chamber is where you put it. And it's the same thing with a concept. Yeah, same thing with a concept or an idea. If it is not familiar to me, if it's not the way that I've learned to recognize it, it's going to go right over my head.
So what we do is we help people find the language of their heart and to enter that world more and more and know that as their essence, their truth.
Yeah.
And as they get freer and lighter, then the sense organ, the body, becomes a vehicle to use it to express it, whether you're using it in China or in India or in Chicago.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. And when it really comes down to it, it's making the commitment that you want to make the change. And I think the biggest problem we have is that we're afraid, and we fear one thing and one thing only.
Yes.
It's the unknown.
Yes.
That's what we're afraid of, is the unknown.
It's very difficult sometimes for people to really put down their thoughts and look at it and see it, because somehow they're getting unmoored of their identity, their grievances, their problems. And it's a very dislocating experience because, gee, well, I got to remember what I was angry about the other day, don't I? Don't I got to?
Yeah.
And the truth is, no, you don't, unless you want to be miserable the rest of your life.
Somebody gave me a great definition of anger years and years and years ago. And they said anger was blocked expression. So and when you really come down to it, you can't get it out, so you internalize it, and it has all the problems. But if you think about it, if you're getting your point across to somebody, there's nothing to get angry about. You've expressed.
If you can, exactly. If you can sort of walk and chew gum, if you can be compassionate to your own human beingness, and then you will then more likely have a compassion for the other person, and then from that clarity of how you're wanting to be of service and wanting to align with that other person's desire to be, of service, you have a lovely conversation. So you're walking and chewing gum. You're balancing your spiritual dimension, your spiritual consciousness on the one hand with our human beingness. And that creates much more harmony in one's life.
Well, absolutely. Michael, we're just about out of time, so let me ask you this. Is there a website that we can find you at?
Absolutely. It is Law of Attraction Journaling, lawofattractionjournaling.com. It is free. You can sign up for the journal. We have a Facebook group, and we would love to have people join us. We're also, the expression goes, we're teaching what we're learning as we're gathering more and more clarity as to how to language this, because this is a big leap for people to pay attention to what they think. And we want to offer this journal as a way for all of us to learn how to do this and do this more, let's say, as a group conscience, so to speak.
I got you loud and clear. And by the way, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate what you're doing with people.
Thank you so much, Michael. And I look forward to further conversation.
Take care.
All the
absolutely.
best.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
As sweet